Welcome, everybody, to episode 278 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, June 21st, 2017. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by the one and only G-Trip.
Hello.
Hello. Boy, nice and succinct there.
We queued that up really nicely. I could have been a soundboard, just hello. You just push the hello button over and over again.
How's your week going so far, sir?
So far, so good. We had hail. It hailed here, like a hail NATO tore through my neighborhood, which was bizarre. There's still hail in my front yard, and it's 80 degrees outside. So
holy smokes.
That's where my week was. It was weird.
Wow. It rained ice.
It was weird, yeah.
There you go.
How are you?
Very nice here. It's going quite well, actually. Spent the whole day yesterday doing yard work. So for the first time in a long time, my yard looks good. so that's nice. We have covered a lot of ground last week in WordPress. Over the weekend, there was a huge event. You may have heard of it. It's called WordCamp Europe. Took place in Paris. And on today's show, I've brought on 4 guests who...
Only 4?
Only 4. The first 4 who responded, but 4 awesome guests who attended the event, and they're going to share their experience with us here on the show. And we
really tried hard to get all 1,900 attendees on the show today, but instead we picked the best 4.
That's
right. Is that fair to say?
Yes, the best 4.
Okay.
We'll go with that. So before we dive into it and we talk about the event, there were some really cool stats regarding WordCamp EU that I wanted to share with people before we get into this. 1,900 attendees from 79 countries attending the WordCamp EU. There was 1,000 people who joined in via live stream from 77 countries. There was a team of 221 volunteers. There were 45 organizers. And regarding the WordCamp EU hashtag, it received 14,989 tweets from 2,522 participants who posted 3,063 pictures. So trust me, WordCamp EU was well documented by the folks on Twitter, which ended up receiving 60 million impressions. So all in all, there you go. I mean, social media, just the event itself. There you go. I mean, it kind of shows you in a nutshell how big of an event WordCamp Europe has turned out to be.
It's huge. It was incredibly awesome watching it happen all over the Twitter. It was nonstop for me. Like I bookmarked the hashtag and then just watched stuff roll in constantly. So I'm excited to talk more about it today, actually.
Excellent. So let's bring on our first guest. Her name is Coach Birgit Olzem. And by the way, congratulations. I want to pass on to her. She was one of the recipients of the WordPress Educational Scholarship from WP Shout through HeroPress. And Birgit, go ahead and say hello and tell us a little bit about what you do with WordPress.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm from Germany, and I'm the local manager for the German Rosetta site since 2012, I guess. And I'm mostly to find in the Polyglots team channel, and I'm a Polyglots team mentor. I help people to onboard how to translate WordPress into their own local and language. And yeah, I'm a person who's mostly connected in the most teams you find in the WordPress ecosystem. And I'm fighting for the rights for women in the WordPress community and for mental health. So this is a quick resume of what I'm doing.
Excellent. Yeah, there's huge initiatives lately, especially here in the U.S. on improving awareness of mental health. So thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you. It's really, really important because I have some personal insight with that, because after my divorce, I'm a mother of 5 children. You have to fight for the rights of your children, and earning some money to fill the fridge for the children. And so, yeah, there are so many challenges to achieve, and mostly the own health is in the lowest priority when you have others on your plate. And so, yeah, it is really hard to find a way not to burn out too much. But you can't avoid it to burn out. So
I like that your way of avoiding burnout is finding more things to take on and do. Like,
yes.
It's like you might have been easier to ask what you're not into, because you're covering and into so many of the amazing, awesome things. You're like a real polyglot. Like, you're across every possible competency that there is going on. It's great to finally meet you and hang out with you here on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks. But you mentioned it to step into more interesting things, and it is a kind of my help to myself to learn new things, to get some feedback of the things you do. This fulfilling. Mostly, not every time, because you have to deal with some problems that came on the plate, or when you go in support firms, there are sometimes mean people and you have to stay calm, or when you go into polyglot chat and there are so many culture differences. So to stay in balance, to meditate between those participants for some strange topics. So yeah, it's not that easy, but I don't call myself as a coach without any cause, because it's for me really important to help people to stay in a confident and to calm and self-confidence. And yes, it's what I do with WordPress is to do it with to feel better with what that I do. So and sometimes I'm struggling with the words in English. Sorry for that.
No, it's okay.
But let's try. It's that's why I'm so patient and passionate in doing so much stuff with WordPress, because it helps me to stay on track. It helps me to find some balance from the other strengths, because when you have children, there are so many things you have to do outside the computer, and need a balance. And I don't have any other great hobbies, and WordPress is my second soul, told me my partner when I heard that I am the winner of the scholarship. So yeah.
Well,
I love WordPress since 2003, since the first release, I guess. I'm dealing with it. And yeah, since 2009, I'm visiting WordPress every year. So I'm really, really happy to have the chance to attend WordPress Europe this year, because I got ill last year, perhaps because of so many things I had on my plate. But I had no really budget to go to Paris, and I offered my ticket in our channels, and some great people came up, and one gave me his spare room in a hotel for free. Another company came and gave me a sponsorship that I can go out in Paris. And so I had a chance to great WordCamp Europe, and this is my fourth WordCamp Europe. The only WordCamp Europe I missed was in Spain, Seville. So yeah.
Well, excellent. Thank you for being on the show. And you mentioned, I'm glad you're on the show, because later in the show I want to talk about WordCamp Europe and its focus on translations and polyglots. But John, we actually have the MC of WordCamp Europe on the show as well, and her name is Carol Olinger. And Carol, thanks a lot for being on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Carol, and I come originally from Luxembourg. I'm living now in Germany too. And what do I do with WordPress? Actually, I do not work with WordPress. 1 year ago, I didn't even know what WordPress was. And I discovered WordPress and its amazing community because my husband invited me to join him on his trip to last year's WordCamp Europe in Vienna. And yeah, that completely changed my life. I had such an amazing and inspiring time. And in the meantime, I have become a WordCamp organizer for 2 different WordCamps in Germany. I am a meetup co-organizer together with dear Birgit, who has spoken just before me. And yeah, as you said, I was hosting WordCamp Europe as one of 4 MCs this year, and it was an absolute amazing experience. And I still cannot believe what happened in my life in the past 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, you were telling me, we were talking about some of these things in Twitter, and I was like, hold on. 12 months ago, you really had no idea what WordPress was. You had no idea what these WordCamps were. Now you're emceeing the largest WordCamp in the region in WordCamp Europe, and you're doing all these meetups. That's mind-blowing to me, but at the same time, it's a great example of what people can do, people who maybe are just getting started into WordPress, and how they can end up impacting the community and really taking charge on doing these things like meetups and emceeing large events like this. So congratulations to you for sort of grabbing the bull by the horns and taking on this role within the WordPress community.
Thank you so much. And believe me, it's mind-blowing for me too. I still cannot realize it. And it was such an honor for me. And yeah, I had the time of my life. It was amazing. Excellent.
We'll get into that in a little bit. And we have Jakey Levy. Oh, see, I knew it. I knew I'd screw it up. It's Jackie. I'm sorry, man. I knew I was going to mess that up. I've been messing it up all pre-show. But Jackie, man, thanks for joining us on the show.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm really glad that you messed up my name initially and were able to correct it.
Oh, boy. I tell you, that's the highlight of the show, people's names.
Well, it just wouldn't be a podcast without it.
Yes, exactly. So tell us a little bit about what you do with WordPress.
Sure. I've been running an agency for quite some time. I initially got my start doing WordPress sites for dance companies as part of my master's thesis project in New York City. And ever since then, I've been a passionate advocate for open source and really love the WordPress community and how generous people are. And I've been doing a lot of stuff to give back to the community and other people by teaching classes. I've been teaching a lot of classes to artists and in co-working spaces in Brooklyn. And now I myself am based in San Francisco and have a completely remote work staff and just really enjoy working with people. Remember my very first WordCamp was actually a WordCamp in New York City. And then when I made it out to San Francisco, I attended WordCamp San Francisco before it became WordCamp US. And I've been to WordCamp Miami and really remember running into a lot of the core contributors and remember my initial encounters with a lot of folks, including Triple J and Boone and a lot of the folks that are working on Buddy Press and seeing them at meetups. So it's left a very deep impression on me and has really helped me be more generous and give back in so many different ways.
So you were there. Do you remember the famous lunchtime fire drill?
Gosh, I don't.
Oh, that would be WordCamp San Francisco. That was
2014.
That was the last one.
Yes, I attended this too.
Yeah, the fire drill. Boy, that was something else. And last but not least on the show today, we have Dwayne McDaniel. Dwayne, thanks for being on the show. And for our listeners, most of our guests today have joined us via video. They're showing video, and he's got a nice Pantheon shirt on.
Oh, thank you very much. There's good reason for that, because I work at Pantheon. That is what I do in my day job. I don't just like their awesome logo. I also am a client and customer and work there. But I'm also that's how I started working with WordPress initially. I built in other technologies. I've been working on open source since about 2005, worked in Java, business process middleware space, machine learning, and then building projects for the improv community in San Francisco for various groups I was in. I discovered Drupal. I started working at Pantheon, then discovered WordPress, and really haven't looked back. I build a lot of projects now and help a lot of people around San Francisco with small nonprofit personal projects, art projects. And then I'm very fortunate to be able to give back to the WordPress community. I'm a member of the WP marketing team. We just had I had a very big rally at the Community Day WordCamp Europe, where we put in place a very good project management system. We're getting our head around some of the larger issues of how to get the word out around WordPress to the developers in the world, to other agencies in the world, and how to better market it to end users, working with the community team closely on how to better promote camps and meetups globally. So very excited about the momentum there. In fact, if you're listening and want to help out with that project, go over to make.wordpress.org and look for the marketing team, and we would be glad to have you. Meetings happen every week on Wednesdays.
And speaking of Contributor Day, one of the largest differences between WordCamp Europe this year and perhaps WordCamp US or Contributor Day is usually Contributor Day at WordCamp US is the last thing, like it's the last thing everybody goes to. And if you attend the WordCamp US after party, sometimes the Contributor Day is just you know, if you manage to wake up in time and you don't have a headache because you didn't have a great time the night before. Well, in Europe, they tried something different. Contributor Day was the first day of the event, and Jackie, you were there at Contributor Day. I want to know what was it like being part of Contributor Day, and maybe give us your opinion on having it be the first event for WordCamp versus at the tail end.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, just to take a step back, the Contributor Day is possibly one of my favorite parts about WordCamp. If we could just do Contributor Day, that would be enough, just because seeing so many people come together, volunteering their time to make WordPress work is always pretty amazing. I think even though I work on it every day and I'm using the software every day, I never really realize how much work goes in to creating and supporting and building and developing and growing open source software. And so it always reminds me of that. And to jump off of that, a lot of the Contributor Days that I've been to in the past, I've been to, you know, several now, is at the end of many days of being in a conference, and people are tired. You know, it's already enough volunteering, getting up early in the morning. It takes some amount of effort, and doing that at the beginning of a conference, for me, I felt like I was able to meet a lot of people that I was able to see throughout the rest of the conference. We're actually able to get to work together on things and collaborate on things. So we're able to see each other as individuals and peers, and really get to know each other. And when you do that, it's, you know, I met a couple of the marketing folks, and we were seeing each other throughout the conference. It helps build a bond, and it really helps establish more of a deeper connection, rather than networking in halls or seeing some talks. There's something different that happens, and doing that at the beginning of a conference, or really before the official conference begins, is a very smart move. And I really wish that more conferences would do this kind of thing. It's a special thing, particular to WordPress and WordCamp conferences that I've seen, that I just don't see at a lot of other conferences.
Absolutely. If I can add on to that, WordCamp Atlanta this year did the same thing, where Contributor Day was before the 2 days of sessions and the traditional camp. And it brought a great energy. It was a smaller camp than WordCamp Europe. But still, the momentum that carried into the rest of the conference was absolutely great. It was a wonderful way to kick it off. And you're absolutely right. Nobody came in after the after party dragging and hoping to get something done. We came in with the energy and excitement that we were at a camp, we're going to get things done, and brought in the highest energy day before the sessions and really sitting down and doing the networking.
The two last, sorry?
Oh, go ahead.
The two last WordCamps that I have attended before WordCamp Europe had also the contributor day before the WordCamp. That was WordCamp London and WordCamp Berlin. And I really prefer to have the contributor day before the WordCamps, because the people, they are still very motivated to contribute. And as Dwayne said, after the after party, and let's say for WordCamp Europe, which was also special, there was the community summit before. So there have been also quite a lot of people who have been already at the community summit, and it was really a tough program. And I think it really worked fine, perfectly to have it before the 2 days of WordCamps.
So maybe this sets a precedent for, I mean, it sounds to me it's unanimous that like for all future WordCamps, if there's a contributor day, let's make it first thing. Let's put all that energy and excitement to use on the first day, and then the other days we could just relax, we could see each other hallway track, we can learn, we can enjoy ourselves at the after party without having to worry about the next day. sounds like a good time. There are certain things that I remember throughout my career of working with WordPress, and I remember WordCamp San Francisco 2014 Contributor Day, and inside that beautiful office space that unfortunately Automatic recently closed in San Francisco, their Hawthorne office. But we had all these people in Contributor Day in the room. There's a lot of people there, and at one point I got up and I stood at the back of the room, and you just see all these people at all the different tables, heads down. They're working. You can hear them talking amongst themselves. It's not really loud. It's not very conversational in the building, but they're all sort of dedicated and working on their own sort of pet projects and things they want to see improved in WordPress. And just sort of taking that in during Contributor Day is something to behold. And I don't know if you did something similar, Jackie, when you were in Contributor Day.
Contributor days are, I want every WordCamp to be a contributor day. Like, they're the best, most productive, I always leave contributor day feeling like we've made huge strides, forward momentum, in-person conversations, planned for the future. Everything that you maybe can't say easily or gets misunderstood or doesn't translate well over Slack or over video when you're in person. Like, everything just clicks with Contributor Day. So I having not been to WordCamp Europe myself, and particularly not the summit this year, which sounds like it was amazing. Jackie, tell us about. I want to hear more about how the marketing team met in person this year.
I can give a little comparison between past contributor days. The truth is, I remember being at the Automatic office, and there definitely was this like a buzz, and I remember feeling really hooked in and very productive. But for some reason, this particular contributor day in Europe and working in Paris and working with the folks that we were working with, my particular focus is really looking at Gutenberg and getting the word out and seeing how people are using it and working with other folks. And it's really actually the first time that I was learning about Gutenberg. So being in the same room and being in the same building as other people that are making this and being able to talk to them and being able to coordinate, I mean, this kind of thing would take a much longer time. And this is a little contradictory to how we talk about remote working. It's kind of interesting that, we're talking about how something special happens when people are in the same room working together. But it really does make a difference when you haven't had a chance to meet someone in person or work with them in the same room. Being able to come together over a day and establishing that rapport really carries through the rest of the year. And some of the things that we got done specifically, we started making a plan for reaching out to people, connecting with specific bloggers like WP Tavern. We're building out a list.
Oh, I know that site.
It's pretty good. So we're thinking about different people to contact to write about Gutenberg, to give it a test spin, to do a review, and then be able to bring that feedback to the team that's working on it, that's building it out. And we came up with this idea of thinking of the marketing team as a bridge, as connecting all many different teams, and being a new team within WordPress, and thinking of ourselves as how do we contribute not only to the existing work but also to end users and my clients and a lot of people that I'm working with. Being on the marketing team is a really nice challenge because it really pushes the envelope for what we're doing in terms of contributing to WordPress and not having to work within the code, not having to work within an admin system or anything like that, where we're really connecting people. And that was one of the very inspiring takeaways that I got from this particular contributor day.
Speaking of Gutenberg, which is a new editor that WordPress is working on that will hopefully ship maybe sometime later this year, perhaps in 4.9. But one of the announcements that Matt Mullenweg made, I think it was with his Q&A with Owen Malik, is that Gutenberg is now available for beta testing. You can download it from the WordPress plugin directory. So if you do a search for Gutenberg, you can download it. You can take it for a test spin without having to go through the craziness that sometimes is GitHub. So check it out if you're listening. But Gutenberg is, it's got to be pretty exciting to be working on a project like that, because we talk about there's so much hype surrounding the REST API for the developers, but when we talk about Gutenberg and reimagining and recreating something that probably 99% or 100% of users interface and work with, and that is the post editor, we're talking about one of the largest changes in WordPress's history, and it's got to be pretty exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, and to be jumping into that and really working directly on that project, the scale is very large. The responsibility is a really big responsibility. And I was listening to a talk that Boone gave at WordCamp Europe earlier this morning. He gave it at WordCamp Europe. I was listening to the talk earlier this morning, and he emphasized this idea that great things don't happen with just a single person. It really is something that requires so many people, and knowing that so many talented people are working on this. I know that I've been working with WordPress quite some time and work with a lot of end users. So it's something that I'm really happy to be able to contribute and support and provide some kind of outreach for. So I'm really excited about that. And the people that we have on the marketing team are really fun to work with. Everyone's very generous, and having that very generous, open spirit is really important, and having this kind of perspective that this is software that millions and millions of people are going to be touching and working with. We want to make sure we get it right.
I think you're making Dwayne blush.
I watched on a live stream that they had kind of joked that Gutenberg had finally hit like 100 downloads or 100 installs. And I checked earlier this morning, and it's over 200 installs now.
I was one of those 100. I downloaded it as soon as he made the announcement while I was in the seats.
It's cool. I submitted my first pull request to Gutenberg today, actually. So it's kind of awesome. And it has 50 other pull requests, 260 open issues. Like, people are chugging away at Gutenberg like really, really intensely. It's moving and changing day to day. It's getting awesome.
It's really nice to use. I've never really been a fan of the inline editor in WordPress. I've been working a lot with Google Docs and then translating things into the inline editor as I need to post. But Gutenberg just feels good. To be able to add a different block, add a Twitter, add a TED Talk, add anything, and then be able to move it around at will is just a completely different kind of experience. The only thing I've had any luck working with is the 2017 theme so far, but it's early days and looking forward to those pull requests coming in.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about with, and I'll bring in Birgit here because I think she's probably, she has expertise in this area. You know, when I look at WordCamp Europe as compared to WordCamp US, there seems to be a lot more focus on translations, internationalization, language packs, things of that nature. And I don't know if it's just the culture or if it's just the region, but maybe Birgit, you could talk on the focus on polyglots at this year's event.
Yeah, that is a good question because I attended WordCamp San Francisco 2014, the last one before WordCamp US, and I saw, as you mentioned, WordCamp Europe is really more focused on translation and make it more available and more diverse to the regions in Europe. So when you see we have so many countries on the European continent with so many different cultures, more than you see in the US perhaps, and we focus more on connecting each others and building more. I try to find the right words. We see we are non-English speaking. So we have to make available WordPress into the local in Europe to the each countries. When you see, as an example, we have Germany, but we have also Switzerland, who speaks mostly German, but they have an own translation. So we have Netherlands, we have Belgium, we have Luxembourg, we have French, when you see our neighbors in neighbor states, and they all use an own language, or they use some official language, like when you see Canada uses mostly the French, Canadian French as official language. So yeah, the focus is really to translate and make WordPress available in the native language of each user in Europe. So yeah.
And Kara, I don't know if maybe you can weigh in a little bit on that, or maybe just share your experience at the event in terms of networking. And are there any famous, I don't know, famous might be the wrong word, but noteworthy WordPress people you've been wanting to meet that you got to meet for the first time this year?
Oh, there were a lot of people which I was really nervous to meet, because as I said, I am not the typical WordPress person, and so there were people like, for example, Nathan. I heard a lot of him, that he is such a brilliant developer and he did so much for WordPress. And I was seeing Nathan, and yeah, that was like making me a bit nervous. And there were many other people who are famous, as you said. It's a word which I think the people themselves don't really like. And there were pretty much of them. But what I had to say is that every person I met there, even if they were famous or not famous at all, were so nice. And that's what I experienced at every WordCamp I have attended before. And WordCamp Europe didn't make any difference to that. And yeah, it was quite interesting. There were also people who are very active in everything that is a community that I had the pleasure to meet as my speakers, and also at the contributor day. And yes, and in fact also networking was very successful to me. And who knows, maybe I have the opportunity in the years to come to also get more active in WordPress and in its community, which doesn't mean that I'm not active yet, but who knows which opportunities are coming up to me.
Mm-hmm. And Dwayne, I know we mentioned a little bit earlier about the marketing team there, but maybe you can, just a peek Triple J's curiosity. When you guys met, tell us a little bit about some of the outcomes or some of the projects that you guys did.
There was a lot of energy in that room. In fact, originally the marketing team was given only a very small table in the basement, and a lot of people showed up to contribute. So that was a fun moment of having to run around and find more chairs, find other places to work, and eventually going and sort of taking over the community room on another floor and working together. So we had a number of goals, Gutenberg being one of the prime ones. How do we work together to get the word out about that? But Jackie already talked about that a good deal. One of the other things that we worked on, we're very proud to have implemented, is we have a Trello board now. There's been a recurring situation where people will show up to the marketing meetings in Slack and say, hey, I'm here to help. And we say, great, that's wonderful. And they say, what can I do? And we say, what do you want to do? And now we have a very good project management system in place. And today was the first time it worked at our meeting today, where someone showed up and said, I want to do this. And we said, here's the Trello card. And we got to work, people were assigned. And now next month we have a benchmark of what we need to have done by the next time we check in, and how that project will be used moving forward with the particular card around personas, around marketing to the developer. But there's a number of other projects that were going on as well. Again, I think about 20 people ended up contributing in some way or another on the marketing effort. So I'm not sure exactly everything that went on, but those were the things I was heads down on.
So in that table in the room in the basement, we're not, there wasn't a meeting where people were smoking cigars saying, how are we going to take down Squarespace?
Not directly. Not directly. We were smoking cigars though.
Well, there you go. I got half of it right just by guessing. How do you like that, J-Trip?
Have you ever smoked a cigar, Jeff? You don't seem like the cigar smoking type. I didn't think so.
Man, I don't like smelling cigars either, but I digress. So I'll open this up to the panelists. I guess hit a buzzer. Whoever hits the buzzer first, can answer this question. But maybe I'll start with Dwayne, because I believe you've attended both WordCamp US and WordCamp Europe. Did you notice or see anything at WordCamp Europe that you think would be good for WordCamp US to replicate?
I liked the fact that there were only 2 tracks. That was the biggest difference I saw, because then I only had to make one hard decision. Like, do I go to room 1 or room 2, and not room 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? And I am a person that likes to go to every session that I normally can, and trying to play catch up after WordCamp US on going and watching all of the recordings was just a daunting task, and I'm still not sure I've seen them all. Whereas Europe, I'm pretty sure I can conquer that in a couple days.
Okay, how about you, Jackie?
Well, one of the things that I would really like to see is, I would like to see Contributor Day to include as many people as possible. And I think that it would be really important to include some of the reporting back, or have a little more mention of that during the conference, because I think there are people that are attending the conference that don't have really any idea about what a Contributor Day is about. Surely there were a lot of presentations that emphasized how to contribute to WordPress. There's tables for how people can contribute to the WordPress open source project. So there's a lot of activity around that. I think that it would be nice to be able to report back a little more frequently throughout the conference, and also just. Yeah, actually, I wasn't there for the wrap up. Was there something mentioned during the wrap up about Contributor Day and some of the things that happened there?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there.
Yeah,
Anybody
funny,
else? Did anybody
it's
else
funny
see
you
that?
mentioned that though, Jackie, because I wonder if the original one of the original reasons that Contributor Day was always at after the WordCamp was because then you have sort of given your talks and you've influenced and coerced people into contributing on that Sunday or Monday. And if by having Contributor Day ahead of time, that maybe you lose some of that. So that's pretty insightful, I guess, to have some sort of a Contributor Day recap or to kind of carry Contributor Day onward into the next day or two of the WordCamp, I think is a really good idea.
Yeah, I think the conference does and the community does a really good job in setting up a table for saying these are the different ways to contribute and how can contribute. So I think having people at that table that were at Contributor Day and talking a little bit about their experience that happened during that time is it's a powerful testament. Shows that how many we had 500 people for Contributor Day roughly over 8 hours. That's what 4,000 hours of human labor time in a day. It's a pretty incredible thing to have happen over the course of one day. So I think emphasis on that is something that I would like to see happen. The other thing that I actually really enjoyed is just the sponsors are very generous and hosted a lot of happy hours. There were enough people to have multiple happy hours and multiple parties happen. So that was a really nice thing. And I really appreciated having that ability to go to, different places, different times to connect with folks and have more of a in-person thing. The other thing that I really enjoyed about WordCamp Europe was the ability to connect in with with tribes. With tribes, there's so many people that have different focuses in the WordPress community. So some people are focused on organizing people and organizing communities and project managers and people managers, and other people are focused on code and they really don't want to talk about what it takes to run a meetup. So they want to get, certain things done or talk about code standards. And so having focused networking groups was a really nice thing to see as well, because it really helps build those connections, a lot stronger is what I experienced.
Now, you mentioned sponsors and their generosity, and they're one of the reasons why WordCamps are able to be so affordable to so many people out there. But this year at WordCamp Europe was something a little new, where the vendor floor had space for a 360-degree booth, and some sponsors had the opportunity to be featured in 30-second advertisements between sessions. And there's also organizers were also able to arrange sponsor workshops with a dedicated space for those who purchased the highest sponsorship level. So I've heard a lot of compliments from people that said that the space was laid out very nicely, and sponsors were very happy with it. And based on some of the photos I've seen, there's a constant mingling of people going through the sponsor area. So maybe that might be something else. Maybe we might see something like that at WordCamp US this year. But I don't know if did anybody actually walk through the sponsor booths, get a bunch of swag?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of swag. I unfortunately didn't have so much time for swagging because I had to be on stage a lot of the time. But on the second day in the afternoon, we didn't. You don't tell anybody, but it was mostly while Matt was on stage, because even Matt couldn't bring me back to that room that I had to spend so many time on. So I'm going to check that on WordPress TV. But then I met the sponsors, and it was really, really a nice area. And sponsors were very happy because they said that mostly the sponsors were also active in other communities. They experienced the WordPress community like, yeah, we need the sponsors, but we don't really want them to be here, and we do not want them to spam the people. And this time it was really more welcoming to the sponsors, and yeah, that is the feedback which I got, and I really liked that area, and I had so much fun also with the sponsors, which were very nice people as usually. And I haven't been at WordCamp US before, but I'm looking forward because I'm going definitely to attend WordCamp US this year. It's going to be my first time in the United States ever. I have not been there before. And so I cannot compare with WordCamp US, but I really liked how the sponsors have been handled at WordCamp Europe, and also the area and possibilities they had to present themselves over there.
So if you're going to be attending WordCamp US this year, you're going to, I assume you're going to have to go through the visa process for the US, correct?
Yes, exactly. I had so as I haven't had any experience flying to the US, I know that I will need a certain kind of document. So I know that because my husband attended last year's WordCamp Europe. I couldn't unfortunately join him because of surgery, and I think there's not a problem with Luxembourg because I have a Luxembourgish passport, and it's more like a formality. But yeah, of course, there are many people from other countries which are not which do not have such an easy way to come to the US like I will have. And that was also a problem with this year's WordCamp Europe, because unfortunately there have been many people, many attendees who had seen their visa not approved. And that's really a pity. That's the time we're all living in, and I really would like to see it another way, but yeah, we cannot change it, unfortunately.
I hope we don't have a problem of that magnitude here with people getting visas for the U.S. But yeah, John and I talked about it in an episode, a couple episodes back, where the organizers of WordCamp Europe wrote an open letter to the new president, I believe, Emmanuel, and was asking him to sort of revise these guidelines, or because of these guidelines and the way visas are treated, that it robs people of this opportunity who are coming in. And actually, I think one of the reasons was that the price of the WordCamp, the conference itself, was so cheap that it was one of the reasons why some of the visas were being denied. You can imagine that.
Yes.
Do you all know if there was ever any response to that open letter? Did anything ever come from that at all, other than just us?
There have been no response. I asked for that, but I have been told from the organizers there have been no response. And yes, one of the reasons was, in fact, that a conference which costs like 40 euros cannot be a reason to give a person a visa to come to the country. Andrea Middleton was also talking about that in her talk shortly. And yeah, it's a pity, because the community tries to make it affordable as most as possible. I mean, 40 euros can also be unaffordable for persons coming from other countries. And that really should not be a reason to deny a visa. And I have not heard anything before in my whole life, and I do not know if this could be the case also in the US. I really hope that it's not going to be a reason to deny a visa.
Me too.
So I want to start with Birgit, and I'll go down the line here. What was your favorite session at WordCamp Europe?
My favorite session was the first session on day one, on track 1 from Petya, of course, because she shared a lot about WordPress going beyond borders. And my second favorite talk was from Caspar Hübinger about the generism in the language from non-English speaking, because we have some languages with which have a difference in female and male speech. So there's a topic we can talk another talk, perhaps. Would go hot today, too long for that. But this was my favorite talks. I had not any time to attend more talks. I will see them later on WordPress TV, because I did more time into networking with the sponsors and friends and around and so on. Yeah.
What was his session about the improvements WordPress has made on changing its language to be gender neutral? For example, no more Mr. WordPress now on new installs on the first comment.
Yes, it was.
Which
So
Mika Epstein, by the way, I think pioneered getting rid of Mr. WordPress.
Yeah. It is likely, like you imagine the roles in the back end, like editor, author, and so on, and along these roles are describing, and mostly in German, two arts of kind. When you call author, it is in German called Autor or Autorin. You have to say it is a male or female, and if you use instead of author the adjective or the describing of the role, so it is more neutral. Then you say, okay, an author can publish, write and publish his article or her article, or can publish the article, so to be neutral. So is it impossible to change in the core to make it easier to translate later for those languages who have to decide male or female?
And by the way, I say gender neutral. I know that's one of the things that the Contributor Day, the documentation team, worked hard on with Help Hub, is they're going through and they're making all of their documentation gender neutral, sort of taking out that bias there. So it's actually becoming a bigger part of the WordPress ecosystem is the whole gender neutral thought process. Carol, what was your favorite session that I don't know if you got to see other than MC?
In fact, yes, I had like 11 speakers, and so I was in 11 sessions plus the one from my husband. So that was really a new experience for me, because to be honest, at WordCamps before, I was more like networking, volunteering, and I have not been too many sessions before. And so I saw this time 12 of them, and I could not follow every session from the beginning to the end, because I was also busy in the Slack channel and see, okay, what's going on in the other tracks, and coordinate between the tracks, and see what the organizers want us to announce in between. But I remember Joshua Strabble's session very good, because I really liked what he was talking about, and it was very accessible to me. It was not too technical. And I really liked Dwayne's session. He was also one of the speakers I was emceeing, because it was a really new way to describe the developers world, and it had a completely new insight, new point of view for me, and it was interactive. I liked that, and people loved that, because it was not boring at all. And that was a really good session too. And of course, I liked Andrea Middleton's session, because it was really community related. And that's one of the topics which interests me mostly.
That's one of the sessions I'm going to be watching here very shortly, is Andrea's community session. She always does a great job with her presentations. And by the way, shout out to Josh Strabel if you're listening. You're looking quite dapper these days, let me just say. He's got a good look going. Dwayne, now you can't pick your own session, so hopefully you have a different session you can say was your favorite.
I got two that stand out in my brain. The first is Heather Burns, Making Your Voice Heard, How to Win Friends and Influence Policy, which is a very timely message on how are we going to shape the future of our open source community. How are we going to make sure that our voice is heard? It carries on into a conversation that I've been having in the Drupal community mostly over the last year, of the open source seems to have won, but we've won a few battles where you haven't won the war. There's no concerted effort in the open source world to keep the free and open internet free and open. There's no one throwing hundreds of millions of dollars a year to lobby for one particular way to do things as the closed CMS markets can and do. So how do we organize and get our voices heard and make sure that the internet stays free and open? She had some really good practical advice in there, and I highly recommend everybody go and check out that session. The other one was actually a lightning talk from Pascal Bursler on translating WordPress into Romanish, which is an endangered language. He was doing it as a project, not because he's a native Romanish speaker, but because he thought it was very important to go contribute to saving the language, and at the same time making WordPress more accessible to that population. Though it's not very large, still is a population that needs addressed and needs served out there in the world.
Excellent. Two awesome sessions. And Jackie, you're up.
Well, I mentioned earlier that I really enjoyed Boone's talk about the pernicious myth of the code poet. He did a really good job in talking about what coders, developers, and software engineers are doing on a day-to-day basis and how they fit into this framework of a new job and what the lineage is from a historical perspective of where we fit into the work world. And I really liked that he broke down this myth of this coder working completely on their own, in the middle of the night and just churning out code. He did a really elegant laying that out. So yeah, Boone, if you're listening, you did a great job. And I think everyone should watch that talk. The other two pieces I wanted to mention, other two folks that I really enjoyed hearing was Yoav Farhi. He mentioned that Arabic is spoken by 4% of the world, but it's only on something like 0.25% of sites are actually in Arabic. And so he talked about right to left and left to right to get sites in Arabic or Farsi or Hebrew or other languages. And then there was another lightning talk by a guy named Rahul Bansal, and he was talking about how he was able to translate WordPress into 3 other languages with the help of basically a work sprint and meetup and lots of volunteers over the course of a day. So that was really inspiring. All those talks were.
But I think when it comes to translations and languages, I think probably one of the things that's really helped out in terms of translations and polyglots is WP Translations Day, which I believe there's been 2 of them now. We're all across the world. People are having these meetups, and it's quite inspiring to look at Twitter and to see these people celebrating. They're all gathered and they're having cake or WordPress cake or whatever, and they're all translating WordPress into their native language. And at the beginning of the day, maybe it was at 20% or 30%, and then at the end of the day, maybe it's 90%. And then in future meetings, they end up getting that to 100%. So kudos to Petya and everybody else involved in the Polyglots group for the WP Translations Day, because I think that's having a tremendous positive effect on internationalizing WordPress.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I just didn't really realize is just how quickly it can get done, and with the effort of so many people. It's not something I was really aware of, honestly, before coming to Europe. I wasn't on my radar. I kind of sort of half saw it. I've helped set up sites in multiple languages, but it's not really something I was aware of until I came to Europe.
Awesome. Is it just me, or do you when you hear Boone speak, do you feel smarter? I mean, that's how I feel. If I just listen to Boone, can talk about whatever. He could talk about dogs. He could talk about flowers. He could talk about shapes of clouds. I will feel smarter by listening to him.
He has the exact opposite effect on me. I usually feel pretty smart until I'm in person or watch Boone talk, and I'm like, I gotta step up my game. This guy's too good. This guy's too much. I gotta try harder.
Boone Gorgeous. Yeah, he's a great presenter. Love watching his presentation. So, anybody excited that WordCamp Europe 2018 will be held in Belgrade, Serbia, June 14th and 16th? Organizers are already on board for that. I know that Vladimir Prelevac, the creator of Manage WP, I'm pretty sure him and his team is pretty excited to host a huge WordCamp in his hometown. I hear the food there is delicious.
I was so excited when I heard that it's going to be in Belgrade, because we intended to go to WordCamp Belgrade this year, and then there was some troubles with the flight, and so yeah, in last minute we changed, and we attended WordCamp Berlin, and I was in hope that we have to go to Belgrade next year, because we knew that there was an application, and I'm really happy that it's going to be Belgrade. I mean, I do not know if there has been any other city applying, but what I like most about it is that it's going to be this time in an Eastern European country, and also I think after Paris, I mean, Paris was a great city to host WordCamp Europe, but it was also very expensive.
Yeah,
and
that's one of the. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that some of the attendees said about hosting it in Paris. Is that it's a beautiful city, but the hotels and everything else surrounding the city is just very cost prohibitive for a lot of people.
I mean, we shouldn't forget that there are so many people who are not going to be paid for attending a WordCamp or for speak at a WordCamp, and it should be more affordable to more people, in fact. And I think Belgrade is going to be a great place, because I'm quite sure it's an amazing city. I have known a big part of the community, and local community is awesome. So that's already a lot of good reasons for Belgrade being the host of WordCamp Europe 2018, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I think it's going to be affordable for more people, and that's a good thing, because we had now 2 times Western European cities as a host. I mean, Vienna was a lot cheaper than I thought it's going to be, and yeah, Paris was of course expensive. And yeah, that was enough for 1 year. I'm looking forward that next year it's going to be less expensive, and it's going to be great community too over there. And yeah, we'll see you all there, hopefully.
I'm going to buy my ticket tomorrow, actually. I'm going to plan 360 days ahead and get the most inexpensive flight that I possibly can, like right away, just to get on top of it. I'll have no excuses then for next year.
Well, just to jump on that, if anybody wants to share like a villa with a pool or a skating rink, I started checking out some Airbnbs. So if you want to get in on a mansion or a castle or something like that, it's pretty affordable. So, hit me up.
Oh,
Count me in.
A castle in Belgrade? Oh, boy.
Well, one can hope.
Absolutely. One of the things I like most about WordCamp Europe, which has sort of been this kind of leading the way for WordCamp US, is WordCamp Europe now, with the organizers, the team, working on things a year in advance, host cities, applications. The whole event is like a well-oiled machine now, and it's a very good example of what's possible with a large-scale event. And and in fact, earlier today I was watching a 5-minute interview somebody did with Matt Mulliweg, and he said that he's very impressed with what the WordCamp European community has been able to do with this event. And he said, he's very optimistic. He says, I think this thing can scale to even more than what we have here today. So what does he have in his mind? 3,000, 4,000 attendees? I mean, my mind is blown just by thinking about attending a WordCamp with 3,000 or 4,000 attendees.
My guess is probably more like 10. Like
there you go. Yeah, I'm not thinking big enough.
Yeah, right. I mean, we'll definitely get to a point where there will be. It will take a stadium to fit all of us, right? Like if we're doing this right, and we're contributing, and we're spreading education, and we're helping each other level up and being more awesome, then it doesn't stop here. Then 2,000 is awesome. 10,000 is better, though, right? Like that's where you you want to bring every single person up with you, no matter what they're into, and introduce them to it and help them be the best, web citizen that they can be. And what better way than contributing back to literally any one of the 10,000 things that Birgit is into right now.
Yeah.
Well, if we get into stadiums, we got to make sure they have a dome on top, because we do them. WordCamp US is about early December, and I don't think we want to be in an open air stadium. But imagine you doing a presentation like in Dallas Cowboy Stadium, and the BBs are on that huge Megatron of a TV.
That'd be pretty awesome. I would totally be down with that. That would be a lot of fun.
You had to make epic slides because everybody would be able to see them.
I would actually have to do slides then, which would be a thing that would happen probably the night before.
Excellent. So let's wrap this baby up. We'll start with Birgit. Is there any feedback or anything you think WordCamp Europe could improve, or?
Oh, I don't have any big topics on my list. I guess one big topic the most attendees had was some issues with the food while the event, because it was not so nice to have some paper bags and so on. I guess there's something with the organizer, or we all, not only the organizers, so any type of community member can change to be more aware about produce some waste. But I guess the event was, for me, very accessible. So I don't have any big issues to add.
Yeah, I will say that WordCamp Europe did an excellent job. They had a live captioner, and there was on-screen captions for the presentation, so it was more accessible that way as well. I believe WordCamp US does the same thing.
Yeah, but WordCamp Europe had it in 2 languages.
Well, there you go. Awesome. Of course, they got to do it better. But it also makes sense because of the location. Carol, any final thoughts on WordCamp Europe?
I totally agree with Birgit. Which should be improved is really how much trash was going to produce. There was too many plastic for lunch, and I mean there are very easy possibilities to avoid that. And there was also no recycling. And I personally think that when you're organizing an event with 2,000 people, you have a great opportunity to produce for this 2,000 people less trash and be I cannot find a word. You have a Vorbildfunktion. You know that, Birgit?
Yes, you have to be the better part.
The good example. The good
yes,
example.
good.
And I think that's something we should focus on by organizing WordCamps. I mean, it's not in the code of conduct, but I think it could be in the code of conduct also, that environment protection is something which concerns us all, and we should all care about that. And there are things which can easily be improved. So that's my feedback. If I have to find something that could have done better, yes, go for that. Environment protection is important.
I saw a photo on Twitter of somebody took a picture of the dumpster, and it was filled with waste from the event, and they actually said, WordCamp Europe, perhaps we could make a better effort on limiting our waste. And from what I was told, I think there was bagged lunches, and there was plastic wrap sandwiches and things like that for lunch, which may have contributed to the waste. I know that I've personally I've attended local WordCamps where they tried to have a zero waste policy. So everything, whether it was food, cardboard, drinks, whatever, they had recycling bins on site, and they tried to make it so that anything that had to do with the event, there was like a zero waste policy, and they tried to get as zero waste as possible. And I think it's just a common sense thing that event organizers should do, or at least be conscious of, is how much waste the event will produce, and try to limit that as much as possible.
And I have to say, I have to add also that there have been so many cultures, and it is not enough to say, okay, we expect people to also, after they have eaten their lunch, to bring a trash to the dirt bin, because yeah, I mean, we agree on that, but with so many cultures, there are also cultures who are not used to that. And I mean, it's not so cool to see all the trash lying on the floor after that. And yeah, I think one should think of that before and find a solution to prevent that it's going to happen like this. And also maybe with volunteers. I mean, I am also volunteering at so many WordCamps. I would not mind if I have a shift like half an hour, and going to grab some trash. And I'm doing this as a volunteer in any case. If I'm seeing something lying on the floor, I take it and I bring it to the dirt bag. And yeah, that's the thing that I would share with the organizers. That's a feedback, and it can easily be improved.
I think that's something that the marketing team can help out with, right? Like, it sounds kind of silly, but cleaning up after yourself and putting garbage where it belongs and sorting the garbage when you actually have to put it away is one of those things where, when you're in a hurry or when you're in a group of 2,000 people, that isn't the thing that's necessarily like your frontmost priority for getting done before you move on to the next thing. And so to make sure that cleaning up after yourself and taking care of your trash and being the type of person who feels totally comfortable picking up after other people's trash too, if you notice something sitting around. We're so good at helping each other out in so many other ways. But for some reason, most people are still willing to walk past some garbage and leave it alone instead of picking it up and put it where it belongs. So it would be awesome to see some more marketing materials around what WordCamp etiquette looks like when the expectation is to clean up after yourself and others too.
I guess WordPress should be here a role model. So it is perhaps a good idea to add it to the marketing material. I agree this. So to be more, we are in the WordPress community a role model for so many open source communities. So what can we do? What do you think is your approach for the marketing, perhaps, like JJ said?
Well, Dwayne, your thoughts, man.
Well, this is definitely something the events team and marketing team should be working hand in hand with to get the word out there that, well, we should be leaving places better than where we found them. If we're going to be good stewards of the web and good stewards of information, we should definitely be good stewards of our resources and make sure that when WordPress community rolls into a place, we're known for, hey, they're going to take very good care of us. They're going to make sure that it's clean. They're going to make sure that we've got the environmental issues down. It's a group effort. So definitely taking notes here as we're talking, and it's something just to be fed back to the whole rest of the community. And if any event organizers are out there listening and would like some help and brainstorming for your local WordPress events for better marketing, we're here to help and bridge those gaps.
And any final thoughts, feedback from your experience at WordCamp Europe 2017?
If you can make Paris less hot and the metro less congested somehow, that would be a great benefit to me, and make the distances between places much shorter. I didn't enjoy all of the walking, I'll admit, but only because I had spent so much time before camp walking around and seeing all the amazing things in Paris. I don't want to harp on it, but I had the same issue of, where's the recycling? I don't know if it's just a cultural difference, but when I was at camp and ordered a coffee, I got a cup about this big that wasn't completely filled, and it wasn't espresso, it was coffee, Americano style. And I don't know if these people had never been to a conference, but WordPress runs on coffee. And we need more of it and lots of it. And I felt terrible wasting all of those little cups, but I had to get my fill.
Carol, did you have anything to say about that? I noticed you unmuted yourself. No? All right, Jackie, you still there?
Oh, I'm here.
All right, any last thoughts on WordCamp Europe?
Well, I think that it's really important to point out that the things that we're talking about are that we have more recycling and make the like an event like this more sustainable, and nothing else. Like the worst thing that we can find is that we should be more mindful as a society, and I think that's just awesome. I mean, how many conferences and events do you go to where that's what you think after leaving there? You know, like, what would I do better? Um, so I think that's a big kudos to the entire volunteer staff and everyone that worked on there and all the attendees and just the generous spirit of this community that we can think of ourselves and see ourselves as role models and really hold ourselves to a much higher standard. And one thing that I do personally at events is I bring my own canteen water bottle thermos type thing, and I use that for water. I use that for coffee. So, you know, those little cups, I had a, you know, pretty big mug that I asked them to fill up. So that's a nice little hack that you can do for your next WordCamps there, Dwayne. And as far as the food went, I think that there was a severe lack of chocolate croissants. There just wasn't enough. And no baguettes. I mean, come on, we're in Paris.
There's always a lack of chocolate croissants everywhere in the world. I mean, that's just
Well, yeah. It was a
universal.
BYOB event. Bring your own baguette.
Yeah, and in fact, the WAPU for the WordCamp Europe WAPU had its own baguette. So even the WAPU had a baguette. So they had what?
Can I add my thoughts on WordCamp Europe, having not gone there?
All right, I'll allow it.
Okay, so one of the things I really like seeing happen from afar is knowing exactly when next year's event is going to take place, like when and where. Because it not only does it really make it look like it's a well put together and well thought out and like well planned event as a series goes in general, but behind the scenes, it means there was a great deal of collaboration that had to happen between the current year and the next year and the really elaborate amount of planning ahead that has to happen to get everyone on board to make the decision, be comfortable announcing the decision, and then be confident delivering that like 12 months in advance is a really, I think it's a really big deal. I mean, for an entire country, let alone like one specific city, like to announce WordCamp Milwaukee a year in advance would be really hard to do for a bunch of kind of silly reasons. So even when we helped do WordCamp Rhode Island, it's the smallest state in the United States, and it's hard to be able to say like when and where is the WordCamp going to be next year and the year after that. So to do it with an entire country or a continent of everything is just it's something that I think looks easy but is totally not easy. And so I appreciate the really what I imagine to be kind of hard, immense amount of work that takes on everyone's behalf. And I think it also sort of shows how respectful that we are of one another and giving everyone time to anticipate travel and getting things planned and getting things set up, not just for a business, but for family and kids and watching your dogs and what you do here and there, like all of the logistics of traveling abroad or staying a week or 2 weeks in a place that maybe you've never been shows that we really try and go the extra mile to think of one another, be considerate of one another, and plan ahead as far as we can into the foreseeable future. So that's one of those things that I would love to see. I mean, WordCamp US continued to try and do, but also every other WordCamp. It's become too easy to wait until the last minute and until it's sort of right up in your face. And I think the planning committee for WordCamp Europe is setting the bar really high in an excellent way.
And I think it kind of goes back to these stats: 221 volunteers with 45 organizers. That's sort of what it takes, and a lot of hard work by those people to do what you described.
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome.
So there you go. That's pretty much going to do it for our wrap up of WordCamp Europe. I want to thank my guests, each one of them, for coming on the show, sharing their experience of the event, providing their feedback and their insight, as well as their favorite sessions. I think it's I think I could say they all had a great time. Probably looking forward to WordCamp Europe 2018. And thanks again to all of my guests here. I'll feel free to you can stick around or do what you got to do. But I just want to say thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See all these thank yous, Triple J? There's so much love here.
So many guests and the two of us, so we'll thank each other, 24 times by the time we're done.
So there is, before we wrap up the show, I did want to briefly talk about a news story that's making the rounds, courtesy of me and WB Tavern. And that is WooCommerce has dropped their 50% renewal discount on subscription. So if you have purchased extensions from WooCommerce.com, you will notice that you will now have to pay full price to renew your subscription instead of the 50% discount. Now, unfortunately, if you check the WooCommerce blog or you look at the Twitter account, there's no mention of this price increase. Apparently, some customers, as you would expect, are pretty upset about this, especially those who have subscriptions set to auto renew because they just assume that the price is never going to change. They're going to get that 50% discount. Not so anymore. And one of the reasons why they're making this change is it looks like they want to go to a more straight renewal process. When I say they, I mean automatic WooCommerce. Like a lot of software as a service products where the renewal is 100% of the original pricing. Now, from the people I've spoken to and the feedback we've received, raising prices is something you can expect a business to do at some point. However, with the way that this has worked and transpired without shouting from the rooftops to all of your existing customers that this is going to take place, a lot of people are looking at this as, well, shady is what I can say. Or, it's not a very good business practice. And, raising prices on subscriptions that existing customers may have set to auto renew without explicitly notifying them that this change has occurred can create a negative lasting experience. And John, one of the things I've seen in the feedback is that the pricing changes and not grandfathering people in from what WooThemes did in 2013 is still very fresh in a lot of people's minds.
I believe it. There's so many add-ons and so many subscription-based things here that they really built a community and an economy on their product and add-ons, and they really incentivized it by having a discount on subscriptions. So how many times have you seen it happen with your cable bill, your cell phone bill, or Netflix goes up the first time in 5 years and everyone's upset about it? Like it's the exact same feeling, except it's for something that you didn't expect to go up, and then it went up a little bit more exponentially than your extra $2 or whatever it is on the other things that you would normally pay for. So as a consumer, I get why people would be upset by it. Sure.
I mean, we're talking about WooCommerce Core, the core product, and you could do some basic e-commerce with it. But really, the heart and soul of WooCommerce is all of the extensions that are available for it. And if you put together a really, an impressive store with a lot of features, this could cost people hundreds, if not thousands, of extra dollars, because that's a 50%. Now you're paying full price instead of that 50% discount. So of course that has a lot of people upset, and of course because they didn't get notification way ahead of time that this is going to happen, now suddenly you have to do some math. You have to find a way to account for these extra costs now that just sort of suddenly show up.
without there being outbound communication, and I guess I can't speak to whether or not there was, or if there was, and maybe it was not big enough, or if it wasn't identified.
Well, what about
well enough,
okay?
sure.
Let me ask you this: what about the idea that their subscription renewal email that they get 7 to 15 days prior to the subscription expiring? What's your take on that being their notification of the price increase?
That to me seems adequate. That seems okay to me. If something is going to renew and it comes in and says, hey, by the way, it's going to cost you more this time, and you have, the 7 to however many days to opt out of the auto renewal, that to me seems like enough to give me some fair warning to make the decision. Not that my inbox isn't an abyss anyways, where it takes me a month to reply or read an email, but it still at least is better than nothing. If it's nothing, it looks weird. It feels weird. Even if it's not weird, it still comes off that way. But if there is some outbound communication to say, hey, by the way, this thing is happening and whatever else, then that doesn't really bother me as much. What I would like to see, and this might just be as being involved in the industry deeply, or knowing the people that are involved in it, and also understanding the economy of add-ons and WooCommerce plugin developers whose livelihoods matter. I would be curious to know if any of the price increase positively affects the developers or the teams that have built these add-ons. If they're getting compensated more generously for the work that they've done, then I honestly have no problem with that. I would prefer that happen. I would love to see more people get paid for the value of the products that they build and distribute and sell through the store. But if that's not happening, and it's just more revenue without explanation, or really without a clear warning, it sounds like maybe it was misplayed. It sounds like maybe it wasn't done as elegantly or as straightforward as maybe it should have or could have been, to me.
I know Devin Walker left a comment on the article, and he says, quote, however, I applaud the change to remove renewal discounts. WordPress products for too long have been priced too low and undervalued. Think about it. When is the last time you got a renewal discount for anything outside WordPress? Netflix, right. No. Help Scout, no. GitHub, no. Yep. So why should WordPress products be any different? End quote.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's tough because it's competitive and there are so many people trying to solve the same problems in the same way, but it becomes a race to the bottom pretty quick if you start off by dramatically discounting the work that you've achieved and accomplished. Sometimes you do have to. We've all been in a case where you've done a favor for somebody or done work where you undercharged or didn't get the value out of it that maybe you think you should have or could have. But it does end up being a little bit of a race to the bottom. So having 100% renewal for your annual things, it doesn't, by itself is not the problem. It's the fact that it wasn't that way in the first place, and now it's becoming this way for everyone, is what makes it hard for people to feel okay about.
I mean, one thing I like to see now that this has sort of been, the decision is made and whatnot, is WooCommerce to come out with a blog post that succinctly explains why they're making this change, why now, and where that extra revenue is going to go towards. Like you said, if it's going to go towards improving support, which apparently many people have spoken has not been stellar as of late, if it's going to go towards funding the extension authors, if they're going to get more of a cut of the money, then yeah, I mean, the benefits, I think a lot of people would be okay with that. But if it's just going to go into the coffers of Automatic, well, you know.
Right. That's the thing, is it's easy to be critical when you don't have information about it. You don't really know the details. Like if we don't know the story, we don't know what Automatic's overhead is since they've acquired Woo. We don't know if it's just a cash grab. It seems unlikely, knowing who's behind the team. But without there being any communication around it, then it needs more. I think people expect more, and So I'm curious to see what we're able to drum up, or what conversations we can have from now until next week to see what more there is to learn about what the reasoning is behind it, or where the money goes, or what happens next. I think we've got a good story. And
they have a blog. I hope they use it. So we'll see if we have any updates next week. So by the way, so any listeners out there, if you have a subscription to a WooCommerce extension for WooCommerce.com, keep an eye, and you have it set to auto renew. Please keep an eye out for your renewal notice, which you'll get, and then you have a decision to make. Do you want to pay full price for that thing you've really enjoyed using? It helps you out with your business, or do you cut ties with it? And that's a decision now a lot of people are gonna be faced with now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. So that's going to do it. That's just one of the things I wanted to talk about before we wrap up today's show. Holy moly, what a show we had for you. Thanks again to my guest for coming on. We had an international type of show roundtable here today. It was quite fun. I always enjoy WordPress Weekly when we have all these different accents on the show. It's very good.
You're admiring my Wisconsin accent. That's what
or my Northern Ohio accent, which I do have. I do have an accent, believe it or not. So you can find show notes for this episode and every other episode of WordPress Weekly on WPTavern.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro, JEFFR0, and JTrip.
Follow me on Twitter at JJJ, GitHub at JJJ, or pretty much anywhere else on the internet.
Oh, there you have it, folks. Get the show notes posted here soon. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again next Wednesday afternoon. So long, everybody.
Bye, y'all.